over the weekend. And I was like, oh yeah, there's a command that's called blend, or like blend surface. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's a great way to kind of like merge two different things. So if we go back to like our perspective view here, I'll just kind of show you guys what that looks like. So we'll just kind of pop our sphere in there, and then we'll transition to a cylinder, or it could even be like, this might be, we'll see what this looks like. But normally I've been doing like a cylinder. This would be like 25, 25. That's a big one. And then we can kind of move that into place. So the trickier thing with this command is you've got to have like two open parts of your objects. So like where you're trying to like blend them needs to kind of be open. Or at least that's my experience anyways, was trying to do this kind of stuff. Okay. So if I want to like punch a hole in the sphere, I can do it a couple of different ways. Like say if I wanted that to be a circle, I'm going to start the center of that circle here. And maybe I want it to be like about well, we'll shrink that box maybe a little bit more, but we'll say we're gonna make that about that big. Box we're gonna shrink a little bit. So I'm gonna take this circle and I'm gonna use this to cut a hole in my piece. I'm gonna use a couple commands. One's gonna be called project, and the other one's gonna be called split. So I'm gonna project this circle onto the surface of this sphere. So this is a pretty useful way to kind of make things or like move things onto objects. So I can project this onto this, and then my circle just kind of moves onto that surface, and it's perpetual, so it goes like straight through. Don't need that bottom one. So I can use this to initiate the split command. So I can either type that in, or it's going to be down here right next to your trim command. So split will basically slice things. So it's asking me the object to split, which is going to be my sphere, and then the cutting object, which is the circle. And now I can just take that, delete that. And with my cube, since it's made up of a bunch of different faces, what I can do is pretty easily just grab that, and I can just hit my explode button. So that pops this into its kind of just all the different parts that make it up. So I've got two open surfaces. I'm gonna grab all these separate surfaces right here, and I'm gonna use a command called join. So this takes disparate parts of something, like maybe say I exploded it, deleted part of it, and now I want to reassemble it. I'm going to say join, and now those separate faces are all joined into one. Okay, so when you're doing blend surface, it needs to be something like this, right? Like you need to have like two open parts of a thing. So when I go to the blend command, and it even has something called blend edge, which might be interesting to some of you. but I believe, is it blend edge? Maybe it is blend edge that I want. I'm gonna grab that. Let's try that. So select edges to blend. No. Maybe it's blend surf. Or maybe it's blend curve. Hold on. We'll figure this out. Maybe it's blend curve. So I'm gonna select that curve. Select that curve. Okay, so that was the wrong one. I did this over the weekend, I promise. Let's do blend surface. Okay, select first edge. And then I want to chain edges because it's not selecting all of it. And then we're going to select our next edge. Oops. Oh, interesting. So yeah, it won't let me select, because last time I did this with a cylinder, so it won't let me select those separate edges, which is interesting. So let's see if it lets me do it just with the cylinder. It's weird, some of these commands have really odd like needs, I guess, for lack of a better word. This here. For a little bit, yeah, while I'm doing a demo. But then all these guys will need to use a computer at some point, I think. But yeah, if there's a chair, there should be an open computer. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Pick whichever. Okay, so we're gonna blend these, see if that works. Oh, weird. Come on. Oh, okay. I think maybe I know what I did. Using a computer like a human. Okay, click chain edges first. Okay, now it's asking me for a second edge. Okay, now it's letting me do it. There we go. Okay, so then you should get these, if you guys can kind of see that, these arrows here. That's kind of telling me the direction that curve's gonna go. Sometimes you have to drag these around. So you get a better shape. Okay, let's try that. So you get this weird, and it's somewhat deformable. Like you have options to kind of manipulate how those two surfaces kind of intersect. So this could be a way to like build components. And then you have these like different like selections depending on kind of what you want it to look like. I seem to get pretty good results with like tangency. Seems to be pretty good, but yeah. So that's a way I think to accomplish maybe what you were talking about. I think. Yeah. Yeah, good question. So they might be three separate objects. Let me check. So once I'm like solidified what I want that to kind of look like to blend in between those two shapes, I can say okay. And then if I select it, yeah, so now these are three separate things, but I can take them, and as long as I did everything right, I should be able to hit that join button. So join works in instances like this. Boolean would work if these were all closed solid objects. Okay, does that kind of make sense?
So they're all closed and solid, and you couldn't use that same joint?
If they're all closed and solid, I wouldn't be able to join them like that. Yeah, yeah, they would have to have like, kind of like as they are, they're like so I've changed, there's in the handout, it tells you how to do this, but you can change your back face color. So surfaces have a front face and a back face. So that is generally when you get in trouble, is when the back face starts to intersect with the front face and they like intertwine. So you can change the color of your back face so you can very easily tell when that's happening, because that will mess your objects up most of the time if you're trying to print stuff. So I've done that, so we can see the inside and outside, and you can see that like all of these surfaces like match with each other, these like three disparate parts, right? So if I have stuff like that, I can just join it. If these were, say, like if I were to use the cap command, which basically adds a surface on things, so that's capped, and I can use cap for this one, and then I can use cap for this one. Another thing with Boolean surfaces is that they typically need to be intersecting each other for it to function, so it may or may not work when I do it this way. Let's see. And another really useful tool in Rhino is this little donut up here, this like little rainbow donut. This allows you to inspect your objects, kind of tells you what they are. So if I click on that, it's going to say closed solid polysurface since I put a cap on it. So I know now, like, okay, I should be able to use the Boolean command. We'll find out. They're not exactly intersecting, but let's try it. Oh, yep, so that worked. Yeah. So really just depends on your object type, like what you, oh, and it's closed and non-manifold, so I messed it up somewhere. Non-manifold is usually not a great thing. So the original kind of configuration, I think, will give you like the cleanest object. Because sometimes non-manifold objects, that means there's like a hole somewhere in it. So by Booleaning those things together, there's like some surface separation or something. Sometimes that'll fix itself in the printing process, sometimes it won't. Let's see, join those. Yeah, so now once I join them, it's just a closed solid polysurface. So that's going to give us the cleanest geometry. Cool. Anyway, so I just wanted to kind of touch on that again, since it was something we were talking about in the last class. And this is the blend surface is a really useful tool. Okay, any questions on that? Yeah.
Can you go over again how you made them into open objects?
Sure.
Instead of closed objects?
Like how like when they first started?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I started off with these two objects, right? So you've got your circle. I'm going to use that as my cutting object. So I'm going to project that onto the surface of this sphere to help me make a hole. So, and you can do that with any curve shape. Like if I can draw a curve, like I could manipulate this thing, right? Like I could take these control points and I could like start pulling this thing around if I wanted to, and make like a different shape to like make that hole. That starts to complicate the blending surface, just because like the more complexity you add to things, the like weirder stuff starts to get kind of in the commands. But so anyways, then I use that circle to project onto the sphere. So project, it looks like it's probably in a variety of different places. Let's see, it's in, that is the symbol on my toolbar. I don't have that, but it's in curve from objects. It's a curve menu, curve from objects project. So it's probably in here somewhere. Project, yeah. So you can get it through the menu there if you need to. But if you know the command, just type it in and it should come up. Okay, so select curves to project. Give me the circle. Hit enter. Poly surface to project to, which is a sphere. Enter. Okay, so that's going to project all the way through our stuff. So I'm just going to delete that bottom one. It'll let me select it. Okay. Delete that, and then I'll use my split command. So it's going to be this guy, or you can type split in, and it'll kind of give you everything that's has split in it. Okay, so I'm going to select the sphere, because that's what I want to split. Enter. Select my cutting object, which is that circle. Enter. And it should tell you like, you know, creating meshes, da 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 da. So I can grab that curve and delete it. I can grab that section and delete it. And then for this guy right here, I could do something similar with split if I wanted to, or I could explode it. You can also use like surfaces to split things instead of just curves. So I could potentially have just like drawn a surface and like intersected it somewhere along my you know, sphere. I thought it was a good opportunity to go over the project command, but you can also do it with this splitty split. Right, get rid of that, and then I could pull this up, intersect it with my box. Like if I, you know, didn't care that I cut a section of it off, you know, no big deal. Right, I can split that. Okay, so then I've got my two open surfaces, right? And then from there you'd run your blend surface, as we found out. I went through all of them. And then make sure, seems to be typical, we need to chain edges, so just click that from the get-go. And it should be pretty smooth. Oh, see, that guy flipped around. So you can see it kind of twists if your arrows aren't totally lined up. I think we can kind of mess with that a little bit. You can start to move that like curve point around, and it'll start to kind of twist things a little bit. So you can get cool stuff like that. But if you want them to like line up, you know, you'd probably drag it over there somewhere. Maybe have to drag the bottom one a little bit. So you have a lot of control over it. But you can see it flipped my surface around, which is kind of interesting. If that happens, you can click on that surface and you can just type flip, which is FLIP, and it'll flip it inside out for you. Did that help? Kind of tell that? Okay, cool. And then I would join all of that together, giving me my little funky object over here. Cool. Okay. So we're going to use little macaronis to go over the second part of what I wanted to talk about today. Whenever I'm modeling something, especially if it's something that exists in the world, I like having, like reference images. So that's really easy to do. The command for that, and they need to be JPEGs, right? So you have a JPEG image saved somewhere on your computer. You can import it into your file using what's called a picture command. So if you just type in picture, hit that, and then it's going to let you browse your selection here, and then you can put that in your kind of workspace, right? And then I can draw on this thing, right? Like if I wanted to, get curvature off this thing or something, I could use my curve tools to kind of start, tracing stuff. I'm using what's called a control point curve. Basically, you just put down all these little points, and they act kind of like magnets. The more you have, the more it anchors closer to that line, right? So we can utilize images in here to kind of like help us generate shapes and ideas and things like that. So with this macaroni image, right? You all probably made macaroni art at some point in your lives, hopefully. Hopefully you had that fun childhood. We can take and just use basic curvature to generate these things. So I can, basically I just took a curve and, maybe followed one of these guys, right? And just pulled that off and started kind of lining them up along this line here, because we're going to do something called flow, or flow along curve. And to use that command, you need something called a base curve. So this is the thing that your objects are going to kind of use to align themselves with. And then you need your target curve, which is going to be our circle. So this is like size to a certain like ring circumference, right? And then I can use my measurements, my dimensioning, to pull off, should be, where's my circumference? Oh, probably just curve length, sorry. So you're going to grab your curve length, and I should be able to just select that. Oops, yeah. 55.92, so that is what I would make my base curve. That would be the length that I would make that. So I would just take my curve, and I'd hold shift to make sure it's straight, and then I would say 55.92, hold shift, and then I would right click, right click, and then right click again. So that gives me my base curve. So I can make sure it's exactly 55 point whatever long. Okay? So your circumference should equal line length. This can be found by using the length command or curve length dimension. So once you've got that kind of started, you can start developing a little bit more complex geometry, right? So we're going to actually like flesh these things out. Okay, so using the pipe tool, we can take our little macaroni base curves, right? And we can, let me just pull this out. So when you're drawing them, they're going to end up totally flat, right? But when you click on stuff with the gumball tool, you should have these little control points, right? Or these along your surface. So I can grab those. I can grab multiples of those if I want to kind of like manipulate this surface a little bit. And I can use my gumball to kind of start to, you know, in space, I can kind of start to mess with the shape of that curve, right? Okay. And then I can take like a basically a diameter dimension, right? So I'd take my circle, or sorry, just go into the pipe command. I was thinking of another pipe command. So you go in your pipe command, click on that. It's going to ask you the rail, which you'll get kind of used to this. That's your curve, that's your rail. And then it's going to ask you your start radius, which, I don't know, we'll go maybe this big-ish, right? And then end radius should be the same. Point for next radius, we don't need another one, just hit enter. So that'll give you your pipe shape, right? Okay. And then to kind of make that a little bit more realistic, I added some spheres in here. So these little guys. So I added those into the end of the piece. And to do that, I just went in my sphere command. Using the, sorry, that's circle command. Where's my sphere? Down here. Okay. Go into my sphere command. So I've got center radius. So I'll click that one. And I just want to make sure I'm snapping to the center here. Okay. And then I can kind of just eyeball that, get that one correct. And then I can copy that sphere using copy command. So click on that, and then I can click on the center of that sphere using my O snaps, and then move it to the center of that one. Okay. And then I can use Boolean difference to remove those, right? So remember that from last time. Use my Boolean difference command, subtract from my pipe those objects. And then that gives us these little indents that'll kind of help us, you know, make that look a little bit more real. So once you've got all of your objects kind of figured out, you can move on to kind of actually constructing a ring. So there's, you know, maybe a few different types, and then I just copied them and kind of arranged them so they were all somewhat intersecting each other, right? And then I Boolean them all together so they're one object, okay? And then I used my base curve here, right? So if I had all my objects, my base curve, or base curve and my target curve. So if I want to take those macaroni and wrap them around that circle, I would go into my flow command. So flow, it's just regular flow, not flow along surface. We'll get to that one in a minute. So if you go in flow, select objects to flow along a curve. So that'll be these guys. Enter when done. Select your base curve near one end. So this is where I always get a little confused, because depending on what side of the curve you select, or what end you select, it can sometimes dictate whether the objects wrap on the inside of the circle or the outside of the circle. So, you know, Control Z exists for a reason. So base curve near one end, we'll just select that guy. Target curve near the matching end, well, it's a friggin' circle, doesn't really have an end. We'll do that, and then we'll see what we get. Okay, cool. I chose somewhat wisely, I guess. Looks a little bigger than that one. That's interesting. Who knows? Well, if that happens, you know, you can always kind of scale things a little bit. So it's a little tighter. That may have happened because of the distance away from that curve, actually. Yeah, so I think this matters as well. Like, I think you might have to be right on it. So if we rerun that command, I could just right click in my command line, click flow again, select your objects, right click, end of base curve, end of target curve. See if they get a little closer. Yeah, that was it. So it was just it was the distance those objects were away from that curve. Rhino was like doing what I told it to. Is like, okay, so you want me to stay this far away from that base curve, I'll do it. So it's pretty particular in what it needs from you, but that's just because of it. You know, it's built to engineer like ships and airplanes and stuff, and like that's pretty precise work. Okay, and you know, I'm sitting here making a macaroni ring with it, so you know, that's special. Okay, so one thing to note, you can have a shorter base curve than your target curve, right? That just like scales things. It'll still try and wrap it around, so it'll like stretch your object, which can be cool, right? So it took these little guys and stretched them out like that. So they went from macaroni into like penne or something, right?
Isn't it inverse true where it like squish them down if you have a longer base curve?
It should, yeah. Let's check it out. Maybe. It might be object size related too. But we'll see. No? Well, maybe. They look a little squished. Yeah. So yes, slightly. I think it depends on a lot of factors. Object type, curve type. Yeah. Interesting inquiry. I like it. Okay. So next, if we want to, utilize the pipe command to make a ring, that's pretty easy, right? That's like the easiest way to make like an object that's a ring. You can just pipe around a circle or a curve. You can manipulate that circle. But the way I really like to do it is using a command called sweep or sweep 1 or sweep 2. Usually sweep 1. So typically what you're going to start with is a cross section, right? So what do you want your ring to kind of look like, right? So like the profile of it, right? There's a couple ways to tackle that for sure, but I found this one to be pretty effective. And you know, like just for a simple band, it works really well. So you can utilize like, you know, I just kind of drew, I probably used, I don't know, maybe it was a circle or it's probably an ellipse actually. So I took my ellipse tool, you know, drew a shape like so. That's probably a little big. And you know, you can always kind of adjust things.
If you wanted to, could you add like more points on that circle
Yeah,
to adjust it?
I was just gonna actually do that. So that command is called rebuild. So rebuild allows us to rebuild curves in our image. No, there it is. I just can't spell. So like that's probably way too many points for that. But if I wanted to add like, you know, maybe it had like 6 points or something, but if I wanted to add like maybe make it like 25 points, even that's kind of a lot, we'll say maybe 15. And then your degree is like, talks about like the fallout of manipulation from those points. So like if it were, so right now it's 3, but if I were to have it maybe on like 1, I think it's a lot tighter. So it only controls like a little bit of the curve, where like if I bump it up to 3, it controls more of the curve. If that kind of makes sense. See if I can demonstrate. So like if I have this 1 point, I have to do it in perspective for it to really make sense, I guess. So if I have this 1 point here, and I want to grab that, you can see it starts to pull more of that curve up. And if I were to rebuild the other one, so let's see, we'll do like 2 points, we'll pull those up. And then we can rebuild this with like, we'll say 1 degree of influence. Oh wow, never mind. That did something weirder than I thought it would. So maybe I don't really know what those numbers mean. Oh, interesting. It does change the shape of the curve a little bit. Maybe it's like how tight it's. Yeah. Do you remember from your class? Did you guys talk about that kind of stuff?
I've never done rebuild.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing. But it kind of looks like it's affecting,
It's affecting,
how much that pull
Yeah,
is gonna
like the
affect.
anchor,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. That was my initial thought, but yeah. So I don't know. You can play around with that. Let's see. What's 2 look like? Oh, actually, it feels like it's affecting more.
Yeah, because that one was 3, right? Or is
Yeah, this was 3. Hard to say. Something to play around with. But yeah, you can rebuild stuff with more points. Did you ask that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then with the tubing.
With the what? Are you talking about with the pipe?
No, I was just talking about the piping, like you can make a full circle.
Yeah, so
You can make it links with that.
what's that?
You can make it links with that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you mean like chain link? Yeah, you can model chain links pretty easily. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, pipe would be the perfect tool for that. Yeah. But so sweep allows us to create. So pipe only allows us to create circular shapes. Sweep allows us to create whatever shape we want and then revolve it around the rail that we have. So I've made this rail here. We can take our shape and line it up with that rail. So I'm going to use the gumball. So I'm holding shift to make it 90. Then I'm going to rotate it again. Come on now. No. Why are you? I just want one curve. Why are there two curves? And then I want to rotate it this way.
If you hold shift while you're rotating, it snaps to 90.
Yeah.
90, and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really important thing to know. Where's my center? This ellipse has a center, I swear. Okay.
Oh, you don't have a grid snap one. Maybe that'll help you with this thing.
Nah, grid snap snaps to your base grid of your construction plane. No, I just want one of my O snaps to work. That's a weird choice. It's got quads. We'll just try that. So, making a construction line. So the ellipse doesn't have a center apparently. Not one that Rhino actually recognizes, so I had to make my own kind of center. So I used a line from end to end, and then I'm going to move that from the midpoint of that line onto, oh my gosh. What do you mean there's no, come on. Give me a point. Dear God. Okay. I guess we're going to have to use near, which is like a not very accurate way to do this, but I think it'll probably still work. Probably, maybe, sort of. All right, so once we've got our object on there, we can select that. Or, well, let's get in the command first. So it's sweep 1, because we've got one rail. This is my rail. This is my shape. Enter. And there's our surface. So you can pretty easily generate like a band form using sweep. What do you guys think of that? Good stuff? Bad stuff? Interesting? Useful? Okay. Good. Cool. And then from there you can kind of start to add things to it if you want. You can kind of see I added a little cylinder there, kind of Boolean those together, and I had made these like little funny like plinths that I could stick my macaroni on. And another thing you can do is project text on things, or like input text. So to do that was a little complicated for this ring, but I basically took my base curve that made this ring up. It's on the inside. Right, so I took that and I did a sweep 1 with like a single curve, right? So I had, or a single line. So I took that line and I swept it around, and that gave me a surface. That gave me a surface to like actually wrap the text onto. And so I only wanted it to go like maybe at most like halfway around the top of the ring, right? So then I took that object and I split it in half using a plane, right? And then I drew, so yeah, so you can see this note. Projecting text to the inside of a ring can be tricky. It is tricky. I made a text object, which is pretty easy to do. You can just click this T here for text and type in, you know, anything you want using any font you have on your computer, right? Like it could be any of that stuff. And then you have a choice. You can use curves, surfaces, solids. So if I click solids, it gives me the letter height. So maybe I can say like, I don't know, like 5 millimeters. And then, so that's like the font size, right? And then your thickness is like how far it extrudes off the surface. So, you know, maybe I wanted this thing to be like 4 millimeters. And then I can say, okay. That's kind of like way bigger than I thought it would be, but you can drop that anywhere in your workspace, right? So that's a really easy way to generate like 3D text. Anyways, so I did that here, and I intersected it into my base surface so that when I projected it or wrapped it or flowed it on this surface, like just in the same way like that macaroni, depending on how close it was to that curve, it mimicked that same thing when we wrapped it, when we flowed it around the curve. So the same thing will happen with this text. If it's intersecting into my base surface, it's going to intersect into the surface I'm flowing it on. Okay, so I have that set up. I found out, I think, that I had to like invert the like reverse the text basically, so that like I'm looking at it right like this, and it's gonna like flip it up onto that surface like so, right? Just like that. So if I get into that command, so that's flow along surface, not flow along curve, flow along surface. So I can select those objects, and you can do this with anything. It doesn't have to be text. It could be a pattern. It could be, you know, whatever objects you have. So I'm going to select everything that I have here, at least all my text, right? So that's my select objects, the flow along surface. Press enter when done. My base surface near one corner is going to be this guy here, right? Target surface, select edge near matching corner, which is going to be this guy right here, this little corner. We'll select him. And then you can see it flows that object all along that surface that I created. And it's intersected in the exact same way, right? So then you can move that right over to your band, right? So the way I did that is that, again, I have the same curve that like I flowed that object on initially, right? That's still there. Okay, so I've got that, and basically I would take my text, right? Grab all that stuff, minus that surface. So if I want to deselect something, I can hold Control and then left click it, and it'll deselect. Control, left click that. So I'm going to move all of that from that midpoint right there all the way over here. Oops. Oh no, I'm moving that curve. Oh well, I think I still have a snap on it. I'm going to move it to that quad right there. So now I should be intersecting that surface. If I turn on ghosting, you can see here that it's intersected the same exact amount, right? And then I can do a Boolean difference, and it'll remove that, and that impression will remain. So, anyways, some complex stuff, some really simple stuff, but all really useful. Oh, and one last thing, lofting. It's great stuff. So, say I wanted to make some like farfalle, like the little butterflies, right? Over here, I've got these curves that I drew. Okay, so you've got one end, the other end, and then I've got the center, right? Because it pinches down in the center, like a little bow tie. So if I want to do that, I can go into the loft command, type loft, or you can find it in your menu somewhere probably. It's in your surface menu, over here. There it is. So select curves to loft. So I want to go through this guy, and this guy. And you want to select them in order that you want the surface to flow through. Okay. Enter when done. So we can kind of see these arrows are kind of all over the place. And that's going to give me something weird, I think. Yeah. So you need to adjust those so the surface actually flows. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. If you can go get some water if you need
I should drink my own.
to. Okay. Select curves to loft, press enter when done. So we just need to kind of move these things around a little bit. Make sure they're kind of all pointing in the same direction. Kind of maybe straighten that out a little bit. Hello, come on, why are you this way? There we go. Okay, so we want them like all at least pointing in the same direction because that's how it's gonna then like wrap the surface around those curves. Like so.
Could you take that object and like curve it?
Do what?
Could you take that object and like make it into like a circular form from there?
Oh, to like wrap that around? Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. Actually, I'd like to see what that looks like. I'm curious now. Okay, let's cap. Okay, first we need to cap those ends. Maybe. And then I want to, let's see, how are we gonna do this? Okay, so I've created a bounding box around this, and you grab that from the Analyze menu. So this is just giving me like, so it's a complex shape, and I just need to know like how big this thing is and like the size of curve I need to start with.
Where was that?
It's under Analyze menu. Okay, so that's gonna be my start curve right here. Okay, so I'm gonna grab that and not that. Just gonna make a copy of it, go over here. Let's see, we can use that same ring size maybe. Okay, so I'm gonna start here. And I don't think these ends will match up. If I was smart, I maybe would make those so they match up. You'd probably get a better shape. But we can take this curve here. I'm just gonna kind of intersect it into our object so that at least it's really tight to the ring. Okay, and then we'll go into our flow command. So flow this using this curve on this curve. Oh, wait, hold on. I think there's something else I have to check in the flow command. Preserve structure, stretch, yes. Stretch, yes. Yeah. There you go, that's kind of pretty. Cool. Good question. That's kind of fun, right?
How could you make that?
What?
How could you make that?
They would have to be similar. Yeah, so like, so if I took my base curve, and like, you know, maybe I ditch this one, and then I grab this guy, I'll mirror him across the center. So now they're the same. And if I loft that again and have to kind of fiddle with my curves again. Come on. Ugh. Okay, there we go. Pull that guy up. Alright, that looks like it's going to give me some good base surfaces. That looks good. And then we'll cap that again. And then same deal. Bounding box, enter, gives me my thing, and then go from midpoint to midpoint, and then grab our stuff here, no, not the box, control click to deselect the box, okay, grab that. We can take our ring off the curve, and let's see, maybe move this kind of more in the center there. Okay. All right, so same deal, go to flow. So, oh yeah, that's fantastic.
Wait, sorry that you go back there, but how'd you get the line from the box? When you did the bounding box? And you got
Oh, when I did the bounding box?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So you do the bounding box, your object's inside of it. I just take my curve tool, so it's the polyline, and then I snap it from midpoint to midpoint. So that's going to be the very center of my object.
What
too.
tool was that?
Just the polyline tool. Yeah, it's you see where it's at on my thing, just right up there. Yeah. Yeah, turned out pretty good. I'm pretty satisfied with that. Yeah, you gotta have your base curve. Yeah. You have to have a separate curve. Yeah, yeah. That's just how the command determines like how the objects you have are gonna function against the curve that you have. Like it basically uses it like a measuring device, essentially. Yeah. Yeah, so if you just had like a bunch of cubes lined up, you would have to have that same curve running along from end to end. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. I don't know. It's just the way the command works. Yeah, need it for sure.
You still build off of it, but normal after you create it.
Like after I've created this? Yeah, yeah. It's a it is a poly surface. It's closed solid poly surface. It is kind of interesting. I'm wondering if I can, because you have two surfaces basically intersecting each other in the center there. I wonder if I could get rid of these. And like rejoin that all into one. No, it's open. Yeah.
Could you like stitch or blend?
Sometimes you can do something called close. No, that's no. If I go into Edge Tools, show edges, make it edges. Yeah, so for whatever reason, these must not quite meet exactly. Maybe they're not exactly exact. Not exact enough for Rhino. So probably leaving it the way it was would have been the way to go. One more. Yeah. So yeah, you can take your closed solid poly surface and you can like Boolean stuff, you can, you know, Boolean subtract stuff, yeah, all that good stuff. I mean, there are some fun tools just within our transform menu here. See, where is that at? Here. No. Yeah, there you go. So your kind of your like deformations. You've got like bend, taper. There's flow. Got twist. Twist is a pretty fun one. They each have their different requirements, right? Like, let's see. So if I wanted to twist this thing up. So start of twist axis, we're just gonna go right down the middle maybe, sorta. Nope, not gonna let me. So we'll draw our construction line again. And then I'm using the 4 views, Haley. I'm doing it. So I find that endpoint, you can see in my perspective view, I'm at the base. That's my spine, right? And if I go back here, that's asking me like angle or first reference point. We'll say here. And then I can start to just kind of wrap that up. More times you go around, the more twisty it gets. Right? So yeah, so then you can start kind of deforming things like that. So like the bend tool kind of works the same. You have like a spine and you can like use it to like bend things around. And those are all just like the basic standard modeling tools. There's this whole other set of tools that Rhino's introduced called subdivision tools or sub-D tools. They're pretty cool. Myself and Will, right? Where he was in here last night, like messing around on the computer, and you were having a bad time. And then I showed you the sub-D tools, and you were excited, and I was really happy for you.
Crazy things in your modeling. Is that how you did it? Because it was just like pushing,
I was having so
pulling.
much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did things that I didn't see in other people's models. I was actually gonna ask about that.
Yeah. Well, you know, you spent some time in here, so I was like, you know what? So it actually works a little bit like works a little bit like clay. It's not like a, it's better than clay. All right, it's better than clay. You heard it here first, folks. So we can go into our sub D menus. That's like across the top here, and you have similar solids, right? Like basic solids that you can use. So if I just want to make like a box or whatever, right? I can pull that out, drag that out, and that looks a lot different than our standard box, right? Because it's made up of these like panels, and it's kind of soft and squishy, kind of like a pillow. So we can take that, and so that's your standard subdivision. You can subdivide that even further if you want like more control over the surface. So like as it stands right now, just go back to shaded, I can grab, and you have these like, this selection based like modeling. So if I click on this, you know, I just want to grab maybe surfaces, faces. So I should be able to just grab that, right? Okay, so once I've selected just that part of my object, I can take that and I can start to like pull that, right? Using the gumball. Uh-oh, what did I do? Uh-oh, it froze. Oh, there we go. We're back. So I can grab that just using the gumball tool, right? And just kind of start to play with that. And yeah, you can even start to like manipulate the axes. Starts getting pretty funky. And then like if you want, you can select everything, or you can even just select one of these and you can further subdivide that. So then you have
Okay.
now you get it?
Makes
Yeah.
sense,
So then you can like grab, you know, these other little tiles here and kind of start, you know, playing with those. Right, so you can start to get some pretty like
Oh my goodness.
fun, like organic.
It looks like
Shapes.
vinyl.
Huh?
Yeah, it does.
Like vinyl wrap.
Oh, like vinyl wrap? Yeah, maybe a little bit, right?
The way
Yeah.
that it's rendered, so it looks like something stretched everywhere almost.
And what was
Yeah.
that called?
Like this whole suite of tools. This
Yeah.
is your sub D tools.
Sub D?
So you can just create any shape, select the sub D on it. and-
Oh, sorry. You have V6. Yeah.
Do I not have
You do
that?
not. Yeah, it came out in V7. So
Of
it's on all. It's on all these. It's on all
Okay.
these.
I was like, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, right. It's pretty
Okay.
cool. So yeah. So you have this whole suite of tools that you can kind of use, and you should be able to. I might be wrong about this, but you should be able to take your objects and you should be able to translate them to sub D, because it does have a convert objects to NURBS, convert to sub D. Yeah, NURBS are what we're using in Rhino, like as the base of it. It stands for non-uniform radial B-spline, I think. Anyways, that's just whatever mathematical curvature that they decided to use to make this function. Yeah, so apparently it doesn't go quite that well.
I had to, when I was doing this, I had to make a mesh first.
You did the
and
mesh
then
first?
Mesh to go to
Okay.
assembly. And it will alter just like.
It alters the shape. Yeah. So I think that's what I was like theorizing yesterday, is that we'd have to go to a mesh. So you can go mesh from NURBS object, right? and you have control like over how many polygons it is, etc. You know, we'll just go somewhere here, I guess. Say okay. All right, so this is my mesh surface. So it's a little messy. You can see like the surface geometry is a bit funky. But I should be able to take this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to quad remesh it. Okay, so that looks a little cleaner. And then I should be able to take this then and make it a sub D.
How similar is that to the original? Or
Pretty different.
what?
Pretty different for what you can do with it. Yeah.
No, but I mean, like in like the actual like form of the shape, is the shape actually the same?
Oh, it's close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Subdivision options, surface corners, sure. Mesh corners, maybe. Creases, yes. I don't know.
Those, and it feels like it kind of decides how squarish it keeps it or how curvy
Yeah,
it is.
that was my guess. All right, so now which one of these is which? Okay, that's the sub D. That's the mesh. Okay, so this is my sub D. So, you know, pretty close. It's a pretty good 1-to-1. It's, you know, got a few rounded corners. That's just kind of how that stuff works, right? But yeah, so from here I should be able to, yeah, so now I can edit the object on kind of this small of a level here, right? I can start to select things like that. But yeah, so just a different way of working, really. Yeah. Straight to the quad mesh? I don't know. Maybe we can. Yeah, looks like it needs to be a mesh first. Yeah. Yeah, so you have to go straight, you have to go from a NURBS object, use the mesh menu, mesh from NURBS, and then from NURBS you can, or from mesh, like standard mesh, basically you've got kind of so this has some quads, but then it has a bunch of triangles. The tris are bad, quads are good, as far as like editing 3D objects. Okay. Any kind of questions on what I went over? Yeah.
So for the sub D you just made a bow tie shape, can
Yeah.
you use it in its sub D form the same way for
To wrap flow? Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know. I'm gonna probably assume not, but let's see what happens. So is this that's my mesh. That's my mesh. Did I go backwards? Oh no, that's sub D. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question because it's like they kind of exist in two different modeling worlds. So let's see if a bounding box still works. So that's a good sign. But like you could always, you know, flow your NURBS object and then take that ring and turn it into a sub D. But let's see what happens here. Oh, well, let me select it, so that's a good sign. Now I just gotta find my, so there's my base curve. Yeah, yes, correct. But it's a little funky on the connections because of how it translated it. But you could probably clean that up if you mess with the surface enough.
You wanted like another shape, to like intersect at that point with the way it connects there, not matter anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a pretty dirty connection as far as like modeling goes, because that's a pretty hard, like, I don't know, maybe you could like Boolean something into that. Not exactly sure how that works with sub-D tools. Do I even it's a sub-D Boolean? That's a great question. Is it? What was that, Will? You couldn't find anything? Yeah. Yeah, because there's bridge. So, yeah.
No, this is completely off topic. So if you, I just wanted you to know for like how you went from like the macaroni and then to this.
The which one?
Yeah, how you went from like the line of macaroni and then like you,
Oh.
and you curved it into the macaroni base.
Yeah, sure. This stuff. Right, this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So same exact thing we've been doing with the flow command. Right? So you've got all of your shapes and they're all Boolean together into one big long string.
Do they have to be touching? Are they all touching?
Well, yeah, to Boolean them, they need to be intersecting in some way. Yeah, I mean, it's not totally necessary that they are all one object to do this operation, but if you're gonna then like print the thing, it's good to know that they're actually connected, right? Because if they're just disparate objects, like unconnected, and you go to print them, they'll just fall apart. When they come out of the printer. Yeah, so this is all one line, right? And then I've got my target curve is a certain diameter, and that is equal to the length of that curve.
And what axis is that circle on?
What
It's flat,
axis?
it's flat.
It's just flat. Yeah.
If you wanted to, like, so if I had like that line of macaroni, but I wanted the circle to rotate on like this axis rather than this axis, how would I do that?
Well, you could just take, like after you're done, you can just take it and.
Well, because the reason why I asked is because
Go
like
with
if I were I'm thinking of like a link I want to do, like you create the orientation of the link would be flat, and then you would have to like bend it like this. So if you were to do it like what you just said, it would be like sideways. It would be right. So how would you take that and like just bend it like downwards? If that makes sense.
Like.
Oh, are you saying like, so if it's like flat like this, because the macaroni's bending like this,
Like
instead of going like this?
yeah.
So,
How would you bend it
Like if
this,
it's a
this
flat
way rather than this way?
I mean, it'll bend around the curve.
it'll bend like that? Like on the outside?
orientation, so instead of bending this way, you can rotate it like that?
Yeah, you could
yeah,
bend
like
it
that, yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you, like, yeah, maybe I'd have to see.
I get what you're saying. You're, yeah, you're right.
But yeah, like if you had like a chain link, like of course those don't have to be touching. They just have to be interconnected.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. Like,
He's gonna be able to show you.
Oh.
look, if I have this link, right?
If you
I
had-
want to rotate it like
Yeah.
this, so it sits like that, rather
Yeah.
than if I were to rotate it like this, it would sit like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. You would just rotate this up.
Yeah, and have it like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
then,
so rotate.
yeah. That's what
that
you
makes
said.
sense. Okay, oh, yeah.
and
I
how would
see.
you? And then how would you? So then, how would you get the line under the macaroni?
How would you what?
Get the line under the macaroni?
How do you find this?
Yeah.
It's the it's the circumference
Of the circle.
of the circle.
Okay.
Yeah. So like way in the beginning here, I kind of talk about that. So you've got whatever circumference you're trying to wrap around, usually you find that first, right? And then, or diameter, whatever. But you can just use the length command in Rhino. So if I just type length, it's going to give me the length of this. So 55.920 millimeters. Or I can just go in dimension, and I should have curve length dimension. Select that.
And then with that line that's under the macaroni, you can select that and float around the circle.
Yeah, so in your flow command, it'll kind of walk you through
Yeah.
what it wants.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So should they get to playing around a little bit?
Yeah, we can stop here.
Oh, the only other thing, did you, or maybe you're thinking about it for another time, did you talk about, like, arrays?
No, we didn't even get to that.
Should we?
Do you guys want to talk about arrays? Do you know what arrays are?
Might be useful.
Polar is probably going to be your
Yeah,
your
that's the one thing that I think maybe we did last time that we didn't cover, that you didn't have. You covered a lot more this time than we did last time, so. But the polar array is kind of useful, but I don't know, I think that's the only other thing I was sticking here.
Yeah,
So
no.
then-
No problem. So polar array, you can use it on curves. You can use it on 3D objects. You know, whatever you have. So if I wanted to, you know, if I had, say, some objects, and I needed many of them wrapping around the circle, and say they're, you know, all have an even distance between each other. The command for that is array polar, so that is going to be either in your menu here. You've got polar array. You can array along a curve, array on a surface, array along a curve on a surface, a rectangular array. We're just going to do a polar array. So if I grab that, select objects to array, going to be my 3D object there. My center is going to be there. Number of items, 3 over 360 degrees. You can change that angle if you want. You can change the items. You know, fill angle, maybe I only want it across like 45 degrees, right? So I've got all of these guys. You know, so I've got something like that. And then I could take all that stuff, Boolean it, and then I've got a singular object there. But it's mostly used, it's mostly used like around a circle, usually to fill 360 degrees or whatever. So that's a really useful object generator. Yeah.
I want to go back to your examples when you would like made the ring and you were putting like little shapes and things onto the ring. It's on like the yellow layer. There was one where you put like the cylinder onto the
Oh, like that?
the fillet on it to make it like a smoother shape instead of having a
Sure.
And I was trying to get that to work on one of my examples, but I couldn't.
So like this between here and the ring.
Yeah, just making that cylinder like have really soft edges all around instead of just like
Okay. Yeah. Like even kind of where it touches the ring itself.
yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. Okay, so you can see I kind of realigned my gumball to my object. So you're either aligned to the C-plane, the object, the world. So right now I aligned it to the object so I could kind of pull this off and not lose the way it sits on the piece itself. So this kind of comes back to that project command. So what we can do here, we'll first kind of punch a hole in the ring itself. Oops. Hold on. I'm also going to have to adjust my construction plane. So I'm going to, first I'm going to align that to this cylinder. So I can do that using set C-plane to object. So click on that. I can click on the face of this thing. Okay, so right now you can see it's just attached to that, right? You guys can kind of see that. That way I can draw my curves on the right plane. Where's my quad? Okay, whatever, doesn't matter. All right, so I got that circle curve. Probably going to shrink that a little bit. And then I'm gonna project that onto my ring surface. So go back to that project command. Curve, enter surfaces to project to this guy. Alright, so we get rid of that one on the back. Don't need that. Then this guy on the front, we'll use our split command on the ring using that curve. Get rid of that. Explode this guy. Get rid of that. Maybe move. Whoa. Rejoin. Maybe move him a little closer. And then we'll start with our blend surface. Chain edges. So that's our first segment. Looks like we got the whole thing. Second edge will be here. Looks like our curves are pretty well aligned, so I'm just gonna go with that. So that's pretty decent transition. Let's see what else we got here. You know, you could maybe go something like that. That looks pretty slick. What's that? Oh. It's okay. And then to round that surface, that's going to be kind of what we talked about the first. That's going to be fillet edge. Grab this guy. Just giving me a 1 millimeter fillet. If I right click again, it's going to allow me to dynamically adjust that. So I can either do it by eye or if I know the exact measurement, I can put that in when I first start the command. And then click that edge, and that shows up. Hit enter again, and then I've got the option to either go with that, or it also allows me to add different handles. So if I wanted to, I could then go in and dynamically adjust just a few of these. Oh, where'd you go? Whoa, that's way too big. I'm gonna disable my O snaps. I think that's messing me up here. So we got 0.449. I'll probably never hit that. Whatever, close enough. All right, so if I've got my like fillets figured out, let's see what this does. Hit enter. And then that gives me a nice kind of slick rounded edge like that. Cool. Any questions on that stuff? Any further questions on fillets or yeah?
After you do this process, are you gonna reorient this?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You don't have to do much to do that. You can go back to your standard menu, and there's this little 4 square here. You can just click on that and click on it again, and then it should reset all of your viewports. So you double click on that 4 square in your standard. You could also reset your seaplane. Somehow, probably using one of those, but I just click that and it sets everything back to normal.
Will you change the sequence again, just like
Yeah, sure. So, depending on what object I want to do, let's just use a cube. Right. So if I've just got this cube and I'm in perspective and I want to like draw a curve on one of those faces or something, right? I'd go in my seaplane menu, I'd go to set seaplane to object, I click on that, and then it says select object to orient seaplane to. So what if I'm around this thing, say I want to just set it to this side there? There that is. And you'll see me kind of using a shortcut. I customized my middle mouse menu to have the zoom selected button on here. But basically, you just pick whatever object you want to zoom into and hit that button, and it allows you to rotate around that object. And that's like your center of vision if you're having trouble like navigating the space. But yeah, you can just go back into that and just set it to any part of, you know, your surface, right? So, and that just allows you to then like draw curves and stuff on that. It makes a lot of construction easier, easier than sometimes rotating the object itself. Any questions on that stuff? Is that pretty much cleared up? Okay. You guys want to mess around then for the rest of the class period? Probably got a lot to do. That was a lot longer than I was expecting it to be. Sorry, guys.
Thank you.